In the last life, in the world that ended, I charged into a horde of the dead to save my girlfriend. It was then that I awakened my power, the ability to control them. I kept her safe. But in the end, as she lay dying, she looked at me with pure venom, mourning her dead friends. "Why did you get to be the main character?" she rasped. When I opened my eyes again, she was the one who had been reborn before the fall, scrambling to trigger the event that would give her power. I watched her max out credit cards and take out high-interest loans, rallying her crew to hoard supplies. And I smiled and clapped along. She believed she was the chosen one, destined to be a queen in the new world. What she didn't know was that the signal that gave her a second chance. I was the one who sent it. And in this world, the apocalypse was never going to come. The phantom smell of rot and sweet decay still seemed to cling to the back of my throat. I shot upright in bed, my heart seized by an icy fist hammering against my ribs. I wasn't surrounded by rubble and ruin. I wasn't staring into the twisted face of a zombie. I was looking at the familiar peeling paint of my dorm room ceiling, a single, sad-looking cobweb dangling in the corner. Sunlight forced its way through a gap in the cheap blinds, illuminating a column of dancing dust motes. It was terrifyingly quiet. No screams, no moans, no wet, crunching sound of bone being chewed. I held up my hand. It was clean whole. No dried blood under the nails. No faint, blue-gray stain left by the overuse of my power. My phone, lying on the nightstand, lit up. The date was displayed in stark, clear numbers. June 15th, 2045, 8:03 a.m. There were still 3 full months until the theoretical. No, the previous global outbreak of the K-virus. I was reborn. No, that wasn't right. I wasn't. The memories flooded in like a broken dam, bringing with them the image of Chloe Jensen's eyes in the last moments of her life. Eyes filled with hatred and disbelief. "Ethan, why? Why did you get the power? Why did you survive to the end? Why did all my friends have to die? If I had known, I should have been the one to go for supplies. Why do you get to be the main character? It's not fair." She had shrieked, her emaciated hands clawing at my arm, nails digging into my flesh before she finally went limp. To her dying breath, she believed I had stolen her destiny, that I had killed the so-called friends who got themselves eaten by zombies in the first weeks due to their own stupidity and selfishness. I sat on my bed for a full 5 minutes, just letting the reality sink in. I was back before it all went to hell. But then a strange, dissonant feeling crept over me. My memory felt altered. There was something extra. Fuzzy fragments, words floating in the ether, signal, inducement, observation. Before I could figure it out, my dorm room door slammed open. Chloe Jensen burst in, her face flushed with a wild, manic excitement I had never seen before. Trailing behind her was her inseparable crew. Kyle Brogan, the loudmouthed jock, Leo Martinez, the perpetually stressed-out student government nerd, and Trevor Reed, the one with a trust fund who was hopelessly crushing on Chloe. "Ethan, get up. Something huge is happening." I looked at her and my heart sank. That expression, that tone of voice. It didn't belong to the Chloe of June 2045. This was the Chloe who had survived the horrors, who believed she'd been given a glimpse behind the curtain of fate. She was reborn, too. But those extra memory fragments told me it wasn't that simple. "What's wrong, Chloe?" "Slow down," I said, forcing myself to sound groggy and confused, playing my part. My eyes swept over the 3 guys behind her. Kyle looked impatient. Leo pushed his glasses up his nose, and Trevor was hovering near Chloe, his hand twitching as if he wanted to touch her shoulder. Same as always. Last time, these are the clowns who held us back, hoarded supplies, and eventually tried to shove Chloe in front of Zombie as a distraction. Yet she mourned them until the very end. Chloe took a deep breath, looked around the room conspiratorially, and lowered her voice. "You're all going to think I'm crazy, but you have to believe me. 3 months from now, around September 15th, a terrifying virus is going to break out. The infected will turn into flesh-eating monsters. The world as we know it is going to end." Kyle snorted. "Chloe, you've been playing too many video games. Binging The Walking Dead again." Leo frowned. "Chloe, you shouldn't spread unfounded rumors like that. It could cause a panic." Trevor tried to play the peacemaker. "Hey, Chloe, did you just have a nightmare or something? Chloe shook her head violently, her eyes burning with a near-psychotic conviction. I'm not kidding. I'm a reborn. I've lived through this already. I remember everything. The virus leaks from a lab in the South American rainforest. At first, it's just a blip on the news, a minor story. But it spreads so fast. Within a month, the whole world is gone. She began describing the details of the apocalypse, the ruined cities, the desperate escapes, the horrors of the zombies. Some of the details were so vivid they sent a chill down my spine, even as someone who had actually lived it. She conveniently left out the part where I developed powers and protected her, instead painting herself as the resilient hero surviving against all odds. Her crew looked skeptical, but Chloe's prophecy was so specific, delivered with such unnerving confidence, that the smirks began to fade from their faces. So, Chloe announced, puffing out her chest, we have to start preparing. Now, we need to stockpile supplies and build a safe house. It's the only way we're going to survive. I had to suppress a laugh. 3. In a last life, they had all agreed that I, being the most athletic, should be the one to venture into the zombie-infested city for food and medicine. They called it the capable one does more work, but it was a death sentence. And Chloe, she had just looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, be careful, Ethan, tacitly approving their plan. This time, she was reborn. She knew the script, and she was determined to be the hero. Sure enough, Chloe declared with dramatic flair, I know where to find the first critical stash of supplies. And I know it might be dangerous, but this time I can't back down. For all of us, I have to be the one to go. She looked at me, her expression a complex mix of pity and power. Ethan, you stay here at the university. Help coordinate some basic prep work. A dangerous run like that. It's better if I do it. Kyle immediately started sucking up. Chloe, you're so brave. No way, it's too dangerous. I'm going with you. Leo pushed his glasses up. If what you're saying is true, we do need a detailed plan. Chloe, I admire your courage. Trevor looked worried. Chloe, maybe we should let Ethan go. He is, after all. No. Chloe cut him off, her voice sharp. This is my responsibility. I have to go. I watched her performance, and the last flicker of emotion I felt about my own rebirth went completely cold. In fact, it was kind of hilarious. I managed to look touched, like a man who was grateful to be protected. Chloe, you're amazing. I had no idea you went through all that. Okay, I'll listen to you. You go on ahead. I've got things covered here on campus. Chloe was pleased with my obedience. She nodded, then began barking orders with the air of a seasoned general. Kyle, Leo, Trevor with me. We need to make a detailed plan. Ethan, go see what useful stuff you can inventory around campus. Tools, medical supplies from the health center, anything. She swept out of the room with her core team, as if she could already see the victory parade. They'd throw for her when she returned, laden with spoils. I walked to the window and watched them disappear across the quad, their figures bathed in the bright morning sun. It felt like watching a bizarre comedy. The apocalypse? The main character? I closed my eyes, focusing on those extra fragments of memory. They were becoming clearer now. It wasn't my imagination. This whole rebirth thing was a trap. A carefully disguised signal sent to a specific soul, one with the right frequency of resentment and obsession. The signal would activate latent memories, making the target believe they had lived the future and come back, compelling them to act according to a pre-written script. And the one who sent the signal was me. Or rather, the me from the last life. In my final moments, my consciousness, or perhaps my power itself, warped by grief and some unknown catalyst, had undergone a bizarre transformation. It had reverse-engineered the source code of our reality just for a second, and subconsciously, I had dangled the lure of rebirth in front of the most bitter, most obsessive soul I knew, Chloe Jensen. I wasn't the one reborn. I was the observer, the puppet master. As for the apocalypse, a cold smile touched my lips. This time it wasn't coming. The key event, the leak at the biogenics facility that unleashed the K-virus, was laid out clearly in my fragmented memories, along with the path to preventing it. All it would take was one anonymous email to stop it before it ever began. But where was the fun in that? watching Chloe and her crew sprint gleefully toward a cliff that wasn't there. Now, that was interesting. The following days on campus were strange. On the surface, everything was normal. Final exams were approaching, and students scurried between the library and their dorms. But beneath the surface, Chloe's little cult was operating at a frantic pace. She had fully embraced her role as the reborn heroine. Using her future knowledge, she stumbled upon an abandoned Cold War-era fallout shelter in the hills behind campus, declaring it their base of operations. Then, the hoarding began. Where did the money come from? Chloe emptied her savings, but it was a drop in the bucket. So, she turned to online lenders and payday loan apps. Who cares? Once the world ends, money will be worthless paper. We borrow as much as we can, right now, she declared in their private group chat. This is our startup capital. When the apocalypse hits, the ones with the supplies are the new royalty. Kyle was the first to dive in, applying for every high-interest loan he could find, even fraudulently using his parents' information. Leo hesitated at first, but under Chloe's passive-aggressive threats of being left behind, he gritted his teeth and took the plunge. Trevor, of course, went all in, draining his accounts and even tricking his parents into giving him a large sum for a fake business investment. I watched the screenshots of their haul pop up in the chat. Mountains of MREs, canned food, and bottled water. Crates of tools, medical kits, and even a few menacing-looking machetes they bought online. It was all so pathetic. They were like a colony of ants, frantically preparing for a winter that would never arrive. I would occasionally run into them while they were moving boxes, always making sure to offer my wide-eyed admiration and encouragement. Wow, Chloe, you guys are incredible. This is enough to last for ages. Kyle, man, look at those muscles. The shelter is safe with you on guard. Leo, you're a genius. I can't believe you thought of solar panels. Trevor, you're the man. How did you even get a generator? 5 My worship and validation fueled their egos. The way Chloe looked at me slowly changed from dismissive to something bordering on pity, as if to say, see, in this life, you're just a spectator. I'm the star. She even offered me a piece of charity. Ethan, you should try to get some supplies together, too. Even if it's not much. We won't let you starve when the time comes. Her condescending tone was perfectly pitched. I just smiled and nodded. Thanks, Chloe. I'll see what I can do. I then went to the campus convenience store and bought 2 boxes of ramen noodles that were about to expire, tossing them in the corner of my room as my prep. My real focus was elsewhere. According to my memory fragments, the K-virus originated from a series of safety violations at a biogenics lab in South America. The leak would happen in about 2 months, initially covered up as a minor industrial accident. I needed a completely secure, untraceable way to send a warning to the right people. It would require some technical skill and a lot of patience. At the same time, I was observing. Chloe's reborn memory was clearly incomplete and heavily distorted by her own ego. She only remembered the opportunities and dangers that painted her in a heroic light. The true horror of the later stages, the breakdown of humanity, the terrifyingly evolved zombies, she had conveniently forgotten. Or perhaps the signal I sent her only provided the script that would make her feel good about herself. This confirmed my theory. One day, Chloe called a meeting of her core team in the shelter. I was specially invited to attend, probably so I could be properly awed by their inner circle. The fallout shelter had been cleaned up. Supplies were stacked to the ceiling, giving it the vague appearance of a prepper's paradise. Chloe stood on a crate of canned chili, radiating confidence. In her hand was a notebook filled with her apocalypse survival guide. Okay, so according to my memory, the first major horde event will happen near Downtown General. We have to reinforce all the entrances here before then. Also, we need weapons. Real ones. Trevor, what's the status on your contacts? Trevor looked uneasy. Chloe, guns are basically impossible to get on short notice. The best I could do was a few high-powered crossbows and a chainsaw. Crossbows are good, and a chainsaw will work in a pinch. Chloe nodded, then turned to Leo. Leo, did you get the radio equipment? All communications will go down eventually. Shortwave radio is our only hope. Leo adjusted his glasses. I got a used military-grade ham radio set. Still figuring it out. I also downloaded every technical manual I could find: agriculture, emergency medicine, weapon repair, all on several encrypted hard drives. Excellent, Chloe praised. Then her eyes fell on me. Ethan, what about you? Found any other useful resources on campus? I scratched my head and put on an embarrassed expression. I cleaned out that old abandoned greenhouse behind the science building. Figure I could get some soil in there. Maybe try to grow some vegetables if this thing lasts a while. This was only half true. I had cleaned out the greenhouse, but not for gardening. I was there testing something. I was testing whether the power I'd awakened in the last life still existed. The results were both surprising and expected. The power was there, but it was incredibly faint, suppressed by the laws of this reality. I could barely influence the movement of a few insects. It was further proof. The rules of the apocalypse were not in effect. The world was stable. As expected, Kyle let out a derisive laugh. Growing vegetables? Ethan, are you serious? By the time your carrots sprout, we'll all be zombie food. Leo shook his head. It's inefficient, not a practical use of time. Chloe frowned, clearly unimpressed with my lack of ambition, but she didn't say much. I guess every little bit helps, but our main focus has to be on defense and scavenging. She obviously believed that with her foreknowledge, aggressively raiding for resources was the only path to victory. I watched them get lost in a heated discussion about which abandoned supermarkets and gas stations to hit first. They were already planning how to recruit followers and establish their own faction in the post-apocalyptic world. They were completely immersed in their grim, self-important fantasy, oblivious to the fact that their entire empire was built on a bubble that was about to pop. I lowered my head to hide my smile. Go ahead. Keep hoarding. Keep borrowing. Enjoy the show. When Z-Day arrived and the sun was still shining, the calls from the debt collectors would be a sight to behold. The days ticked by, and the air grew thick with a tension only their small group could feel. As Chloe's prophesied doomsday approached, their actions became more and more frantic. They didn't just max out their loans. Trevor secretly took out a second mortgage on his family's home, while Kyle and Leo were put on academic probation for skipping so many classes. Chloe herself had lost weight. Her eyes were sunken, but they burned with the terrifying light of a zealot who has staked everything on a single belief. She practically lived in the fallout shelter now, constantly taking inventory, checking their defenses, and poring over maps of the city, planning supply runs and escape routes. When she saw me on campus, she'd adopt a superior, all-knowing tone. Ethan, there's not much time left. How are your preparations coming? When it happens, if you beg me, I might consider letting you into the shelter. For old time's sake. Every time, I'd nod with profound gratitude. Thank you, Chloe. You're a good person. I'll go get some more ramen. Meanwhile, using a series of proxy servers and a throwaway encrypted email address, I'd already sent a detailed report on the safety violations at the Biogenics facility to several international environmental agencies, investigative journalists, and the CDC. The report contained just enough plausible speculation and insider details to trigger a serious investigation. With that done, my role was finished. I was just a member of the audience. Finals ended. Summer break began. Most of the students left, and the campus grew quiet and empty. In the final week before the apocalypse, Chloe and her crew completely isolated themselves. They stayed in the shelter, living off their stockpiled rations, their nerves stretched to the breaking point. I heard that Kyle and Leo almost came to blows over something trivial, only separated by Trevor and Chloe. The pressure was already cracking the fragile foundation of their group. And me? I was leisurely packing my bags, ready to go home for a relaxing summer. Oh, and I gave those 2 boxes of expired ramen to the janitor in my dorm. She was thrilled. 3 days before Z-Day, Chloe gave me an unexpected call. Her voice was hoarse and urgent. Ethan, final check. You're all set, right? Remember, September 15th, 16th at the latest. It's happening. Cell service will probably go down fast. If you can't reach us, just get to the shelter. The passcode is... Actually, never mind. Just get here. I had to physically restrain myself from laughing. Got it, Chloe. I remember everything. You guys stay safe. I replied, my voice dripping with manufactured seriousness. I hung up, nearly bursting. She really thought she was looking out for me. She had completely and utterly bought into her role as the reborn heroine. It was perfect. September 15th finally arrived. The weather was beautiful, sunny, with a clear blue sky. It was a perfect day for the start of a new semester, for a road trip for first date. A perfectly normal day. I slept in, then lazily scrolled through the news on my phone. The world was quiet. A few minor articles about a flu outbreak somewhere, but it was quickly identified as the seasonal flu. The usual celebrity gossip and stock market updates. No signs of a looming apocalypse. I opened WhatsApp. The apocalypse survival group chat was dead silent. The last message was from Chloe the night before. Final gear check. Stay vigilant. No one sleeps tonight. I could perfectly picture the scene in a shelter, for people with wide, bloodshot eyes, clutching their weapons, listening intently for the first distant scream, the first wail of a siren, the first emergency broadcast that would validate their madness. The minutes ticked by. 9 a.m. The sun was shining. 10 a.m. Kids were laughing and playing in the park outside my window. 11 a.m. An Amazon delivery driver zipped past on his bike. 12:00 p.m. The noon news reported on traffic and local politics. 1:00 p.m. 2:00 p.m. 3 p.m. Inside that fallout shelter, the mood must have shifted from tense anticipation to anxious confusion, then to gnawing doubt, and finally, to a cold, dead silence. I couldn't resist. I opened the group chat and typed a message. At everyone, beautiful day out here. How's it going in there? Everything good? I added a smiling sun emoji. No reply. About half an hour later, a single word appeared from Trevor. Yeah. Then, silence again. I could feel the despair seeping through the thick concrete walls of their bunker. At 4 p.m., I decided it was time for the grand finale. I would pay them a visit, bring a little housewarming gift. I grabbed a bag of fresh fruit from the kitchen and took a leisurely stroll to the hills behind campus. The entrance to the shelter was well hidden. I tapped on the disguised wooden plank in the sequence I'd seen them use. I heard a frantic scrambling from within, and then Kyle's low, trembling voice. "Who is it?" "It's me, Ethan," I said, my voice light and cheerful. The plank slid open a crack. Kyle's face, pale and streaked with sweat, peered out. He looked past me, saw I was alone, and finally opened the door. I ducked inside. The air hit me first, a foul mix of mildew, body odor, and pure fear. The shelter was dim, lit only by a few battery-powered lanterns casting a sickly white glow. The mountains of supplies filled most of the space. Chloe, Leo, and Trevor were slumped in a corner, their faces ashen, their eyes vacant. They looked like their souls had been scooped out. Chloe was in the worst shape. She was curled into a tight ball in her sleeping bag, shivering, muttering something to herself. When they saw me, Leo and Trevor looked up, their expressions a painful mix of embarrassment, shame, and sheer, hollow terror. Kyle just ran a hand through his greasy hair and violently kicked a can of beans, which clattered loudly across the concrete floor. "Damn it! What the hell is going on?" he roared. "Why didn't anything happen?" I casually placed the bag of fruit on a box. "Huh, did you guys not see the news? It's been a totally normal day. I thought maybe you were having some kind of camping theme party in here." "Party my ass!" Kyle exploded, lunging at me and grabbing the front of my shirt. "Was this you? Did you mess with us? Did you lie to Chloe?" I let him hold me, my face a mask of innocent fear. "Kyle, what are you talking about?" "Lie about what?" "Chloe was the one who said the world was ending. She told me to prepare. I was worried about you guys, so I came to check." "Enough." Trevor's voice was a dry rasp. "Kyle, let him go. It's not Ethan's fault." Kyle was breathing heavily, his eyes boring into me, but he eventually let go and sank to the floor, burying his face in his hands. Leo pushed his glasses up, a last shred of desperate hope in his eyes. Maybe we got the date wrong, or the virus mutated. A delay in the transmission. A delay. I picked an apple from the bag and took a loud, crisp bite. "Leo, it's late afternoon. If a zombie apocalypse was going to happen, we'd know by now." "Look," I held out my phone. The screen was bright, showing the date, the time, and a perfectly normal news feed. Full bars of cell service. That screen was the final nail in the coffin of their fantasy. Chloe's head snapped up. She stared at me, her eyes bloodshot and wild with a crazed suspicion. "It was you, Ethan. You did something, didn't you? You knew I was reborn." You were jealous. You sabotaged my plan. I looked at her, and for a fleeting moment, I actually felt sorry for her. Chloe, I said calmly, why would I sabotage anything? What good would the apocalypse do me? I kind of like the world the way it is. I walked over and crouched down in front of her, looking directly into her eyes. I spoke each word slowly and clearly. Have you ever considered that maybe there was no rebirth? That maybe you were just under a lot of stress and you had a very, very realistic nightmare? No. Chloe shrieked, scrambling to her feet, her weak legs wobbling. The details, the things I knew. That can't be a dream. I was reborn. I know I was. Then why didn't the world end? I asked softly. The question was a dagger that found its mark. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She just trembled violently, the madness in her eyes dissolving into pure, unadulterated despair. It's over. It's all over, Trevor whispered, staring at the useless mountains of supplies. The loans. How are we going to pay them back? Leo's face was gray. He slid down the wall and sat on the floor, defeated. Kyle let out a choked, animalistic sob. I looked at the group of clowns who had, in another life, left me for dead, and in this one had authored their own ruin. I didn't feel joy, just a cold, final sense of peace. I took out my phone, not to check the time, but to quietly stop the audio recording. I'd been recording since the moment I walked in. Chloe's unhinged confession about being reborn, their talk of massive online loans, Kyle's assault. It would make a nice little insurance policy for when the collectors came calling. Well, it looks like it was all a big misunderstanding, I said, standing up and dusting off my jeans. False alarm. World peace wins the day. That's good. As for all these supplies, maybe you can sell them on Facebook Marketplace? The tool should be worth something, at least. No one answered. They were each trapped in their own private apocalypse. An apocalypse of debt, of ruined credit, of shattered belief. I gave the catatonic Chloe one last look, then turned and left their carefully constructed, doomsday-proof tomb. Stepping out of the shelter, I was greeted by the golden light of the setting sun. It was warm and peaceful. I took a deep, clean breath and made a call. Hey, Dad. Yeah, my train home is this afternoon. No, everything's fine. Really good, actually. Hey, I was thinking I want to get my driver's license this summer and maybe sign up for a class. Yeah, just want to work on myself. After all, I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face, I've got a long future ahead of me. I hung up and started walking down the hill toward the world of streetlights and order. On campus, students walked in pairs and small groups, laughing, talking about their summer plans, about which Netflix show just dropped a new season. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass. And, yeah, the faint, delicious smell of barbecue drifting from the dining hall. Peace. It was damn good. I took out my phone and deleted the Apocalypse Survival group chat. Then, I took the audio file I had recorded in the shelter and uploaded it to several different encrypted cloud servers. You never know when you might need precious material like that. I couldn't help but chuckle, picturing their faces back in that damp, dark hole. Chloe's face, twisted by despair and terror, was more grotesque and far more satisfying to witness than any zombie I'd ever seen. The game wasn't over, though. This was just Act 1. The best part was yet to come. The next few days were great. I went home, ate my mom's amazing pot roast, and slept without nightmares for the first time in, well, a lifetime. Then I got started on my summer improvement plan. I'd already signed up for driver's ed, and I passed the written test easily. I enrolled in an advanced online coding boot camp and spent my afternoons at the public library reading up on obscure subjects I never had time for before, like crowd psychology and crisis management. You never know what might come in handy. I made a point not to check up on Chloe and her crew. There was no need. I knew their implosion was inevitable, and it would be more spectacular than anything I could imagine. Sure enough, about a week after the failed apocalypse, the class-wide group chat started showing signs of life. First, it was Trevor. He posted a bizarre message asking if anyone wanted to do a summer internship, helping his uncle's company promote a batch of overstocked outdoor equipment and emergency food. He promised deep discounts, payment plans, and even said he'd accept used gaming consoles or electronics as trade. A few confused classmates replied, "Dude, starting a business over the summer? Nice. What kind of gear?" Tense. Trevor's replies were frantic and vague. just urging people to DM him for details. I smirked at my phone. The fire sale had begun. That mountain of supplies, bought with high-interest loans, was now a ticking time bomb. 2 days later, Leo's carefully curated Facebook profile, which had recently featured a shared article on urban survival tactics, was suddenly scrubbed clean. It was replaced by generic posts about hoping for good luck and vague complaints that life is hard. So much for the rational intellectual. But it was Kyle who cracked first and fastest. His Instagram stories became a stream of cryptic, angry posts. FML, I'm so stupid. Trust no one. Anyone know how to make cash fast? No questions asked. Willing to do manual labor. When mutual friends asked what was wrong in the comments, he never replied. You could almost feel the desperation radiating from the screen. The collection calls must have started. Those online lenders don't mess around. The late fees alone were probably crippling. And Trevor's secret second mortgage with a bomb waiting to go off in his family. That unbreakable bond, forged in the face of a fake apocalypse. How long could it withstand the cold, hard reality of debt? I waited, a patient hunter, for the right moment. Finally, one evening in early July, I got a DM. It was from Leo. Leo, Ethan, you there? I let him stew for a few minutes before replying. Ethan, hey Leo, what's up? Leo, so, you doing okay for money right now? Ethan, I'm alright. Home for the summer, so not many expenses. Why? You need cash? The 3 little dots indicating he was typing appeared and disappeared for a long time. Finally, a wall of text came through. Leo, man, don't even ask. You know that emergency prep thing. With Chloe, I got a little carried away, invested too much. And now, well, things changed. The lenders are calling nonstop. I was wondering, could you spot me some cash? Just to tide me over. It's not much, maybe $5,000. My dad gives me my allowance next month. I'll pay you back right away, I swear. $5,000? He was either downplaying his desperation or hitting up multiple people. I typed back slowly. Ethan, man, I'd help you if I could. I actually have about that much, but I just paid for this expensive coding class. Besides, didn't you guys say money was going to be worthless? That this was an investment in becoming the new elite? What happened to that? I twisted the knife. Silence on his end. After a long pause, he replied, Leo, don't remind me. Just chalk it up to a lesson learned. Chloe, I think the stress just got to her, And there it was. The blame shift had begun. Ethan, honestly, Leo, I never got it. How did you guys believe her so completely? It sounded crazy to me from the start, but you were all so into it. I didn't want to be the guy who rained on your parade. Now, what's the point of saying that now? Look, can you lend me the money or not? $3,000? Ethan, sorry, man. Wish I could help. You should try Kyle or Trevor. Aren't you guys supposed to be a team? I sent the message and then muted his chat. Ask Kyle and Trevor. They were probably at each other's throats by now. A few days later, a strange local number called my phone. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Ethan Hayes? A woman's voice asked, thick with tears. I knew instantly who it was. This is Ethan. Who's calling? It's Kyle's mother, she wailed. Ethan, you're his roommate, right? Do you know what he's gotten himself into? We're getting all these calls from debt collectors. They say he owes thousands. He won't tell us anything, and yesterday he got into a fist fight with his father. He's never been like this. I sighed, pitching my voice to sound sympathetic and helpless. Mrs. Brogan, I'm so sorry. Kyle, well, I don't know all the details. A little while ago, he and Chloe Jensen, a girl from our class, they got involved in some kind of investment? Yeah, I think they heard about some project that was supposed to have a huge payout, and they put a lot of money into it. We tried to tell him it sounded risky, but he wouldn't listen. I left it there, dangling the keywords Chloe Jensen and investment for her to latch onto. Chloe Jensen? That girl who's always hanging around him? I knew it. I knew she was a bad influence. That little witch. Kyle's mom screeched, her grief instantly turning to rage. I offered a few more empty platitudes, then made an excuse and hung up. I could only imagine the warpath a furious Mrs. Brogan would be on, heading straight for Chloe's family. A dog-eat-dog world, indeed. 13 like a spectator in the cheap seats. I heard the rest of the story in scattered pieces. Trevor's family found out about the second mortgage. His father had a stress-induced heart attack, and his mother threatened to disown him. Leo's credit score was destroyed, and with a formal complaint from a lender, The university was considering expelling him. After the fight with his parents, Kyle ran away from home. Someone saw him getting into a brawl outside a shady bar downtown, and Chloe Jensen became a ghost. Kyle's mom had raised hell with the university administration. The families of Leo and Trevor had undoubtedly done the same. The reborn heroine was now just a con artist and a pariah. I heard she withdrew from the university, disconnected her phone, and vanished. The loyal crew who once hailed her as their savior now surely cursed her name. Her imagined path to glory had become a dead end, paved with crushing debt and the hatred of everyone she knew. I stood by the library window, looking out at the bright, peaceful summer day. The new semester was just around the corner. I pulled out my phone, navigated to my encrypted cloud drive, found the audio file, and pressed delete. It wasn't necessary anymore. Some endings write themselves. Seeing it happen was enough. A true rebirth isn't about reliving the past. It's about escaping its shadow and walking toward a better future. And my new life was just getting started.